Hello guys and welcome back to Programming N. And today we will be making a racing game in Scratch. So the first thing you want to do is go to the racing game sprites, and that's going to be in my description. We already have our cars that I've made for you, and there's some other sprites if you want to use like a lion, a dinosaur, and a butterfly. But I'm going to be using 2 cars. I also made this to be like a finish line. And I have our backdrop. This is our track. Alright, so now let's start the code. So the first thing you want to do is make it so that we can drive. And if you can't drive, what are you going to do? So instead of that, we're going to use when up arrow key pressed. Repeat until. If we don't use repeat until, and let's say we just use move 10 steps, look at how slow this is and unsmooth. So if we use repeat until, not, and then we use sensing to see if we are pressing our keys or not. And now look at how much more smooth this is. Wow. Just like a car. So now we're going to also do the same thing. Copy this. Use right arrow for both. And instead of this, we're going to be using a turn 15 degrees. So now we can drive around the track. But see, we can't do that turn. That's our problem. So we also have to do the same thing with left and back arrow. So we're going to use turn left 15 degrees, left arrow, and turn left. So now let's try this. We can turn. Okay, that's good. Now let's do copy and paste this. Use down arrow, and we're going to use negative 10 steps. So now let's try this. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to want to put this in our backpack. Let me delete this. We're going to take this and put it in our backpack. And then we can go to the other sprite, pull all of this out, just like it's coming out of our backpack. And now we can do the same thing, but instead of WASD, because we want a 2-player game. W would be instead of the up arrow to go straight. A would be for the left arrow. S would be for the down arrow. And D would be for the right arrow. So let's finish that. Pause the video if you're still behind. But now we have 2 cars that can drive around, WASD, and arrow keys. And you can see that I've named this one Player 1, Player 2, and let's rename this gray block to Finish Line. Okay. Now that we have that, we're gonna start making a finish line. So let's start our finish line. Okay? So we're gonna make it so let's go down here. When green flag pressed, forever loop, if. Okay, take an if touching finish line, then we need to make a variable. Then change player 1 laps, okay? For all sprites, not a cloud variable. And let's make this L capital. Now that's there. Let's move this in all the way in the corner. If touching player line, change player 1 laps by 1. And set player 1 laps to 0 when green flag pressed. And we don't want somebody to just go, look, that went 13. That's not good. We need to wait 5 seconds so somebody can't just go back and forth or just wait on it. No, instead of 5, let's do 7. Now let's try this. That's too much. Let's do 5. And you can test out how much you need by doing full laps, seeing how long it takes. Now that you're back, and I finished testing, and I think 3 is a good number. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag and drop it over here. And I'm going to make a new variable called player 2 laps. For all sprites and not a cloud variable. That's very important. And oops, I forgot to do this. Did I also mistake it here? No. Alright, so now that we're here, set player 2 laps and change player 2 laps by 1. Let's move player 2 laps here. And let's try this out. So we have 1. Let's try a full lap. 2. Alright, now let's try it. Let's restart it. Ooh, something is wrong with my code. What could that be? Let's move this to 0, 0. And let's do some debugging. We have to do something called debugging in code. Why is D not working? It is because I put left arrow and we are using this. Otherwise, I'd be having to put, let's say I put E, I'd have to be holding D and E at the same time. And that's not fun. It would be hard to play. So let's go back to D and let's go back to debugging. Does this work? Yes. So that is good. So now let's try the full lap, see if it works. Driving in, around, and I keep missing it. I'm a very bad driver. Anyways, I don't like the speed. I'm gonna do -8 and 8. And we gotta do it for both, otherwise it'd be unfair. One player's faster and one player's slower. And that would be very unfair. So now let's try this. That's much more manageable speed. Remember to save your project. If something happens, you want to keep it saved. Alright, now that we have 3 laps, let's try this. That's good. Now we need to mount it. So when green flag pressed, it goes in a certain area and points in a certain direction. So let me clean up my blocks by right-clicking and clicking Clean Up Blocks. Point in direction 90. And remember, by clicking this, you can see where it is. And you don't want your cars to be touching the finish line. Otherwise, your cars would just get infinite points at the beginning. Or a free 1 lap. And that's not what we want to happen. So now that we have 1 car in front, let's put 1 green flag pressed, point in direction 90, and go to this position. And now let's do the same thing for this. Point in direction 90 and go to 33Y143. That's the position for mine. Probably it would be for yours, but if you are using a different track other than mine, then it probably won't be the same. It won't be the same. Alright, I have 3 laps. That's fun. Save your project, because over here, now it gets kind of hard. And that's the end. Thank you for watching this video. That's the end of another Programming End video. Check out Ninja Man 2012 where I post and share all of my games that I've made. You can see what I've made, how the code works, play it yourself, have fun, and check back next time when I make a part 2 of my racing game.